Welcome back, Ways and Weeboos, and in this video I'm going to be covering obviously the DPS now. Now, I actually am recording this later. I decided I wanted to re-record this. I originally recorded all the characters in one batch, but there are a few that I wanted to redo, especially now that Bastion's been added back to the game. It did feel kind of bad skipping over Bastion, so I thought it was worth redoing, and I must admit this is now my third time trying to redo it, because... well, my first time I felt like I rambled on too long, and the second time I was talking about nerfs that we thought were going to happen, but I didn't realise that these nerfs, since I just heard about them through word of mouth, I didn't realise these nerfs were actually leaks, not actually officially said by Blizzard, and it turned out that these leaks were fake, so now I have to redo it all over again. I mean, I could have just cut out the sections on the nerfed, quote-unquote nerfed heroes, but honestly at that point it'd probably take as long as re-recording it anyway. Anyway, the DPS, starting with Ashe. So, every DPS has a new passive, just like how every role has their own new passive. And this passive changed a lot over the betas. Originally it was just simply being able to move 10% faster at all times, and this didn't go well. It just meant that even though it wasn't very noticeable a lot of the time, when it was very noticeable was when you were trying to chase down a support, in which case you could literally outrun them without having to use any abilities, which made playing support miserable in the first beta. So then, the second beta, they tried something different, being able to transfer over 30% of your ult charge. And that wasn't exactly a bad passive, but it made no sense why it was just DPS, which is why now you can do that on any role. Now they finally have a good passive. I really think that what they got here with the final release is much better than the previous two, and that is the simple benefit that whenever you get an elimination, and which, by the way, that means that you don't have to get the last hit, you just have to have contributed enough to damaging someone who dies that it counts as an elimination on your scoreboard. When you get an elimination, you get two benefits. You move 25% faster, I think it was, and reload 25% faster, but only for a very short period of time. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because Ashe herself received very little changes in Overwatch 2. However, I think her effectiveness has increased a good amount because of contextual changes, and that's going to be the case for a lot of DPS. Ashe technically only got one direct change, and in fact it was a nerf, that being Bob's health being reduced. I don't think she received any other changes. But despite that fact, I would say Ashe actually is looking better in Overwatch 2 than she was in Overwatch 1, because I think first of all she is one of the characters that benefits more than some of the other ones from the new DPS passive. The reason for that is that Ashe has the longest reload in the game, I believe, because, well, I've got 12 bullets, and she's one of the only characters who, I think the only character who reloads one bullet at a time. So if I was to enter my clip, you're going to see it's going to take a while to refill it. So even just a 25% boost to that is going to be pretty valuable. So let's empty everything but the last two bullets, and then let's kill this guy with the last two.
Bullseye.
And you can see the faster reload in effect there. As well as that, the increased movement speed isn't quite as useful on Ashe as it is on quite a lot of the other DPS. But that's certainly not to say it's not useful, because, I mean, usually after you get one of these kills with Ashe, because, you know, often you're worried about sightlines as a sniper, it's often way easier to land a shot on someone when they don't even know they're in your sightlines. And then once you fire off your shots, obviously they know they need to get to cover. So a lot of the time, after you get a kill, the very next thing you want to do as a sniper is move to a different position, so the enemy team isn't going to know to get behind cover and just dodge you. So yeah, the increased movement speed, while definitely not quite as useful as it is on some other characters, is actually pretty useful on Ashe. The other thing is, I'm actually going to go to Widowmaker now. I think this is the only time I'm going to break order, just because Ashe and Widowmaker being the two snipers, well, technically Hanzo too, but Widowmaker is the only other hit scan sniper. I want to talk a little bit about why else Ashe is pretty good, and I think it's to do with the fact that snipers are just generally pretty good in Overwatch 2. Now I say pretty good, they're not exactly the name of the game right now. They're in a weird spot where I think they're simultaneously amazing and garbage, kind of. The reason for that is because what's really good right now on the DPS is typically dive characters, you know, like Genji and all that. People who really tear up the back line and are really good at getting into, like, surprise attack kind of positions. They tend to be the kind of better DPS right now. And considering that both snipers and these dive DPS are good, obviously dive are going to beat the snipers because, you know, the weakness of snipers is dive. So we've got this interesting like situation where I think that technically in a vacuum snipers are probably about as strong as dive like characters, but knowing that dive characters screw over snipers and both snipers and dive characters are prominent right now, obviously the dive characters kind of win out. But that's certainly not to say the snipers are bad. The main reason why snipers are so good is pretty simple really. It's because there's one less tank and there's far less shields. There's a lot more wide open spaces, which means it's way easier to find long sight lines to get a nice shot off of. But on top of that, even when you get a shot, I'm not a sniper player by the way, even when you get a shot, it's going to be way more useful because essentially snipers, they're kind of interesting. They don't do that much DPS for a DPS. Often the snipers are going to be the lower DPS of your kind of... If you've got 2 DPS and one of them's a sniper, they're almost always going to have less damage done than the other DPS. But they might still be contributing more to the game because when they deal damage, obviously they're almost always getting an instant kill on the spot. Whereas someone like a Genji might be getting a lot of damage done but struggling to actually finish people off if he's having a rough game. So I think that snipers are becoming more useful now since both teams have one less person. Getting one person dead from a good headshot is more of like an advantage for you to push to like initiate a team fight. Before, it's not like that wasn't valuable, but there was a lot of situations in which picking off just one person might not have been enough. Now picking off one person is more likely to be enough to actually be reason to just charge in from there, because that's an entire 20% of the enemy team dead right off the bat. I think especially if you are murdering their supports, this is a lot more true. If the person you manage to pick off was a support in their backline, then absolutely that's the time to go in. So yeah, I think that Widow especially and Ashe, they're going to be really good. I mean, it's not exactly new, but they've always been good at countering Ana, so if Ana is ever doing particularly well, I imagine that snipers will definitely be doing well to destroy Ana in response. But as I say, snipers aren't quite on top right now just because dive DPS are doing really good too, and dive DPS beat out snipers. But yeah, as for whether I think Ashe or Widowmaker is better right now, I think they're both pretty good. I'll say this, if you are just like a crazy sniper player and you just land nothing but headshots, I mean obviously Widow's probably better because you can one-shot. But I think for the average player, and even just like good players but not like insane players, Ashe is probably better in most situations. Just because if Widow gets jumped, she's got nothing but grappling hook, and again, you're gonna get jumped. I mean, everyone's playing Genji, there's a decent amount of people playing Tracer, everyone's playing Reaper, there's a lot of ways that you can get jumped. If you get jumped as Widowmaker, it's just kind of like, okay, let me use grappling hook, and then you have 12 seconds of being able to do nothing about it, and then I'm probably dead. Whereas with Ashe, you obviously get the coach gun, which you can both use to get away and to knock them away, so you can get more distance than you would be able to with Widowmaker. It's got a bit of a shorter cooldown on it, so you don't have to spend as long trying to survive, and even when you are in that close range fight, you're not as useless as Widowmaker because, you know, your primary fire attack, though not as good as your sniper, is not bad, and on top of that, combined with the dynamite, there's a decent amount of times that a Genji can jump on an Ashe, and the Ashe can actually win that just because they throw the dynamite, they set them on fire, and then they just land a couple body shots and they're done, even if they're not fighting them at long range. So Ashe is the more flexible one right now, which seems to be more valuable generally right now. But I mean, if you're the kind of Widow who, when they get jumped, they just continue to stand still and effortlessly headshot the Genji jumping around in front of their face, then you can probably still stick on Widow, and obviously you're going to get more reward off of going Widow from being able to one-shot people and kill them before they can even react. Anyway, so that's what I think about snipers right now. Then there's Bastion. Oh boy. I like Bastion in Overwatch 2. So they completely reworked him. The reason for this, well, I think you all already know, but people hate Bastion. In Overwatch 1, he was just inherently badly designed, in that there was only 2 ways that Bastion would go. Bastion would either be the most overpowered character in the game that no one could beat at lower ranks, or he would be the most underpowered character in the game that wasn't even competitively playable at higher ranks. There's no middle ground with Bastion, really. There is just, oh, I have a fortress around me, and the enemy team isn't working together, so I guess I'm just literally unkillable, and I'll just mow down anyone who appears in front of me. And there is, oh, I'm trying to set up a single, like, spot. I mean, I'm trying to do everything I can to stay alive, but I can't do any damage unless I go into sentry form, which means I can't move. And then while I'm in sentry form, since I can't move, I just get chased down, the entire enemy team jumps me all coordinated. I get like stunned, antied, everything I can possibly do to stay alive if you take it from me. And, like, even with support my team, I still crumble. There's, like, only those two outcomes with Bastion. There's no good middle ground. The best you could do at high ranks with Bastion was play him as a flanking Bastion, where you sneak behind the enemy team and try attack them from unusual angles, and then just go into sentry form so you could deal so much damage so quickly that you can kill them before they can react to the fact that you're behind them. Even that, obviously you can imagine, wasn't the most competitive playstyle, but it could work. Now in Overwatch 2, they've changed Bastion quite a lot. So its primary fire is still similar, but the changes they made to it I really like. So it does shoot slower and it does more damage now, but that's not the reason I like it. I like it now because this is a 100% deadly accurate hit scan bullet with no spread. It always shoots exactly where I point the crosshair, and it's a hit scan, so there's no time for them to dodge. Now this doesn't necessarily mean that Bastion is made for long range or anything, because he has a lot of damage fall off, which means that at long ranges he's not going to kill people anywhere near as fast unless he's finding non-stop headshots, which even then, at certain ranges, even non-stop headshots aren't going to be killing all that fast. But that being said, I really appreciate that now Bastion is this kind of interesting character where, yes, without the damage fall off. It's this interesting character now where I feel like we were missing a character that didn't have weapon spread, but wasn't necessarily a sniper. I don't know, it might sound like a weird thing, but since I'm not really a sniper player, I really like being able to have a weapon like this, because I don't like having to deal with random weapon spread. But of course, most of the characters in the game who don't have random weapon spread are snipers, because they're supposed to be accurate, and again, I'm not really a sniper player. So I really like that we have this character here that has the accuracy of the sniper, but not the burst damage of a sniper, more just kind of fuse damage, and not the damage at range of a sniper. It's more just you get to shoot exactly where you point the crosshair at close range, at medium range, which is really nice. So yeah, I would say that Bastion more works kind of like McCree or Cassidy, or whichever one you want to call him, in that he's like generally good at all ranges, but best at medium range. Now, he lost his self-repair right-click, which makes sense. It was just self-heal, and that it was kind of a stupid ability in the first place. And he now has his A36 Tactical Grenade, which, as simple as this ability is, I've got to say, I actually really like it. So basically, at first it seems very simple. It's a stick grenade, right? You throw it on someone, and it sticks to them, and it blows up. And it looks like it deals just over half of their health, so like a 20 maybe. Which like seems just kind of boring, but what I find is interesting about it is its physics are very unique. Despite the fact that it sticks to enemies, it doesn't stick to walls, it bounces off of them. As well as that, as you'll notice here, it has a low gravity. It falls slower than most other objects in the world. So it's got some very interesting and unique properties to it in terms of the way it moves around, which probably means you'll be able to pull off some interesting skill shots with it that you won't be able to pull off with a lot of other projectiles. But more importantly, Bastion can rocket jump. And honestly, I mean, obviously it's no soldier from TF2, but like, it's pretty good by Overwatch standards, this rocket jump. Now, I'm not the best at this, so I might screw this up, but let's see. There we go, not the perfect rocket jump, but yeah. So as I say, if you're like really good with that, apparently you can even launch yourself from the low ground on Dorado's second point all the way onto the roof of the town hall with just one rocket jump, which is really cool. So yeah, this rocket jump is going to be pretty good for Bastion. I have made a few plays already where I've managed to like land behind the enemy team and sweep them up from the back without them noticing by like getting onto the roof of something and sneaking behind them and dropping down from behind them, which has been pretty fun. But his sentry mode, of course, would have had to have changed as well for him to, you know, not be garbage anymore. And it has, and I really like the changes, actually. I was very skeptical at first. When I first heard of these changes, I thought, it's a step in the right direction, but isn't this just going to make Bastion stupidly overpowered? And, you know, it didn't really make him overpowered. It's actually, he's being considered underpowered, if anything, by a lot of higher level players. Although certainly at low level play, he is dominating, which, yeah, it is Bastion, that makes sense. So yeah, now when I press this, I can still move while in sentry form. It's now called Assault. Wait, Configuration Tank, never mind. I guess. Huh, I thought they called it Configuration Assault. Oh no, that's normal. Wait, no, it does call it configuration assault. Bruh, it can't make up its mind. Okay, right, well anyway, not important, I guess. Main point is, you can deal stupidly high DPS with this, even though you can't headshot. And you're allowed to move around now, which you couldn't before. And although the movement is slower than normal, you can get a speed boost from killing people, as I mentioned, and that can often help compensate for the slower speed and make it feel basically moving at normal speed while using it. So yeah, very powerful. But now, as you can see, it's a timed ability. You only get 6 seconds of it, and then once it's done, I think it's 10 seconds before you can do it again? Or is it 8? 12. Longer than I thought. Yeah, so Bastion's quite interesting now. I would say that he's basically kind of like a tank DPS hybrid, which probably shouldn't surprise you too much, considering he's the only DPS with 300 health, and then he's got armor on top of that 300 health. Also, I'd like to issue a correction. I must admit, I made a mistake in my first video. I said that armor halves all damage that you take with it. I believe that was true during the betas, but now it takes a third off. So I was incorrect about that. In hindsight, that makes a bit of sense actually, but still, it's still insanely powerful armor. So I haven't done really the math, but Bastion's probably got something more like between 350 and 400 health for his actual health bar. Effectively. So yeah, he really is basically bordering on a tank. But of course that comes with its downsides. That being, do you see how much of a big fat target I am? So yeah, this is how Bastion isn't overpowered, despite the fact that he can now move while using his configuration assault, and his configuration assault's damage is like stupidly ridiculously high. The reason it balances out is because he is such an enormous target to hit that it's, well, just really easy to hit him and not that hard to headshot him either, because his head's pretty big as well. It sounds like it wouldn't matter that much, but it really does. I don't know how else to put it. I'll put it this way: if you're just going out there as Bastion and expecting to mow down enemy teams with this, what will happen is you will do a large amount of damage, but you probably won't get enough damage to finish anyone off, because everyone will jump at you simultaneously. You'll be booped left, right, stunned, you know, hit with anti-nades, and then by the time you finally get the chance to close out a kill on one person, the other 3 people will collapse on top of you and you'll die. So yeah, I'd say that Bastion is very powerful if you either, 1, are attacking from an angle where the enemies don't even know you're there, or 2, are very well defended behind the rest of your team. But if you're just trying to walk in and establish dominance as Bastion, unless the enemy team is simply bad and doesn't react properly, or just doesn't have any characters that are good for like stopping you, like booping you around, or protecting from your damage, like, you know, sort of like a defense matrix absorbing all your damage, or no kind of stuns. If they don't have anything like that, then maybe you could run them all over, but a lot of the times it's difficult. Anyway, then there's this new ult, which I don't have much to say about, but I do prefer it to the old one. It's not like my favourite ult in the game, but as I say, I really didn't like the old Bastion ult, so I do think it's better than the old one. It's basically kind of like Meteor Strike, but actually good. So first of all, when I press it, I'm going to be forced to stand still, kind of like Junkrat's Riptire, and I can still die while I'm like this. I'll just be like standing here. I get 8 seconds to place 3 shots at 3 different locations from a mortar, and they'll fly down later. And an important thing to keep in mind is, well, 2 things. First of all, these mortars are actual bullets that are spawned into the world and fall from the sky. And apparently it's even possible to get a headshot, quote-unquote, with them, although it's very unlikely to happen, by having it land on top of someone's head before it even blows up, which is weird. Especially weird because another thing about it is, so that it's not terrible on indoor maps, the bullets do actually go through ceilings. So I'm surprised they can actually headshot. I thought they would just explode when they hit the ground, but yeah. So you don't have to worry about, oh no, I can't, you know, use my ult in this area, there's a ceiling. You saw I dropped a bomb here and it did land here. It didn't matter. So yeah, I think this ultimate is sort of mid, but I don't have a problem with that. Bastion's got a lot of damage output as it is, so I don't think he needs the most insanely damaging ult. In the right situations, obviously this could be very powerful. I imagine this combos very well with stuff like Grab or Maze ult, but on its own, as you can imagine, just like Meteor Strike, it's kind of hard to land your shots. Although, unlike Meteor Strike, it looks like it's got a more generous spread of damage, so even if you might struggle to get a kill, it looks like... let's test it, actually. If you're, like, on the outer circle, it still seems to do a decent amount of damage. Yeah, even if you're on the outer circle, you still take quite a lot. So it's less easily dodgeable than Meteor Strike. so it's definitely better than Meteor Strike, but it's kind of like it, yeah. Anyway, then there's Cassidy, or McCree, and again, whichever one you want to say. His name had to change. Long story, real long story, but they had to do it. But anyway, so a lot of people have been very worried about McCree / Cassidy, because, well, he doesn't have flashbang anymore, does he, like I mentioned? And that was, like, his most powerful ability by far. So people are obviously very concerned, like, is he even good anymore now? You didn't see that. I think the answer is, he's actually still fine. Now, don't get me wrong, he's definitely weaker than he was in Overwatch 1, but he was one of the better DPS in Overwatch 1, and I don't think he's necessarily bad right now. It's more just, I think he's very unpopular, because I think he's simply outclassed by Soujorn. Soujorn is currently one of the strongest DPS in the game. Obviously, we'll talk more about her when we actually get to her. But she's insanely strong right now, and I feel like she serves a lot of the same roles as Cass. So we're in this situation now where it's kind of like, why would you pick Cass when you could pick Soujorn? But I think that's more a testament to how strong Soujorn is than Cass being weak. I do think he can maybe use some minor buffs, but I don't think he's exactly dead like a lot of people are making it out to be. So yes, he can't stun anymore. However, he still has the 25 health boost he got back in Overwatch 1, so he still has a little bit more health than the average DPS. He still is, well, simply a very powerful hit scan who has 100% accuracy, like I mentioned, no bullet spread at all, just fires in a direction and his bullet flies in that direction and just pow. You can deal 140 damage for a headshot, so you can still two-tap people from pretty long distances. Further away, you might have to get more than 2 shots in to kill them, but yeah. There's the new ability, Magnetic Grenade, certainly isn't as strong as Flashbang, but that's certainly not to say it's bad. Does 130 damage, so 1 body shot will do it from there, which is really easy. Cass still basically wins any duel that anyone starts at him from even medium range, because it's just like, oh, someone's jumping me. Oh, in fact, let's make it a thinner target. I don't know, Genji. Where's Genji? Like, I would even though obviously he used to be better at it, I would still say that Cass is fine at countering Genji. Because if a Genji jumps up at you, yeah, it can be hard to shoot him, but you literally just land 1 body shot, they're dead. Your job's done there. Anyway, so Cass still really excels at short to close range duels. He's still very accurate at long ranges. He's still slightly more durable than most DPS. But as well as that, he gets a lot of benefit from the DPS passive, the increased movement speed, increased reload speed. The increased movement speed is obviously great in general, just for repositioning, because you play it like all these different ranges. It's great for chasing down people with magnetic grenades, since magnetic grenade is pretty short range. And the reload speed is great because, of course, this gun only has 6 bullets before you need to reload. But it's especially good when you use it with Fan the Hammer. Fan the Hammer, I actually think, is surprisingly more powerful in Overwatch 1 than it was in Overwatch 2. Sorry, the other way around. In Overwatch 2 than it was in Overwatch 1. Because I was obviously expecting Fan the Hammer might become borderline useless in Overwatch 2 because you don't have the Flash Fan combo anymore. But that really wasn't the case thanks to the new DPS passive because, well, once you get 1 Fan the Hammer kill, you get the increased reload speed and increased movement speed to be able to chase people down and go for another one. So playing Cass, I have been able to very often just chain kill with Fan the Hammer. I get to just walk up to an enemy team, Fan the Hammer someone, oh they're dead, walk up to another guy, Fan the Hammer, and now like the first guy can be kind of difficult. You usually can't kill him from full health with 1 Fan the Hammer, of course. Like usually you get in a fight at first, it's like, oh no, it's a tough fight. I landed 2 body shots, let's finish him off. And then you get 1 kill, and then it's like, okay, now I can outrun everyone on the enemy team. I'm just gonna run up to them and yeah, they just keep running them over like that. This also, of course, builds ult charge really fast because you're dealing a lot of damage. Even if somehow you're struggling to get kills off of this, you're dealing so much damage that you will build up ult charge quickly. And it also even just acts as a nice way for other people to have opportunities to create for them to get in. Because again, even if you aren't killing with all this Fan the Hammer damage, you're going to be leaving a lot of targets on low health, or at least like panicking and scattering while they're healing it up. Which means that it's going to be easier for your tank and your other DPS to come in and capitalize on that kind of frantic situation for the enemies. So yeah, Magnetic Grenade itself, as I say, it's powerful, but I do have some gripes with it. So the whole thing with it is since it's magnetic, you don't have to aim with it that hard. You can see I missed that, but it just gravitates towards my target. However, it works very weirdly. If I try and use it at like a medium range like this, I don't think it will work. Yeah. you can see it explodes because it goes, once it gets this far, and if it hasn't found someone to try and stick to, it just explodes instantly. And you might notice it didn't deal that much damage at all. Like, this one it dealt just over 50, this one it didn't even deal 50 damage. You might be thinking, huh, that probably seemed like less damage you would expect, considering when I threw it like this, it was 131 in total. The reason why is because they coded magnetic grenade's damage very, very weirdly. It's got 3 parts to it. When it sticks to someone, it deals 1 damage to them. That makes sense. It's like waking them up if they've been sleep darted. Is the main purpose of that. There's then also the explosion itself, which will deal 65 damage in the center, and obviously less damage the further away you are from the center, which also makes sense. Except that's not 130. That's 66 damage. Where's the other like 65 damage? Well, weirdly enough, they for some reason make it so that once you've stuck a grenade onto someone, it also deals a direct 65 damage to them on top of the 65 explosive damage, but that's not part of the explosion, so you can only get that extra 65 on your original target and can't spread it amongst multiple targets. Which does make it feel like, despite the fact it's called Magnetic Grenade, this tool really isn't very good at dealing with multiple targets. Like, you can see the splash damage on this is pathetic. And I think that this is sort of intentional. I guess they don't really see Kree as a character who should have crowd control. Crowd control not as in stuns. I find it weird that we call that crowd control. I mean more like literally, there are multiple targets, let's hit them all with one move. I feel like that would actually fit for Kree now that he doesn't have flashbang, and now that like he is a medium range character. I think it'd be fine for him to be able to deal damage to multiple targets at once, even if his main weapon isn't necessarily made for that. I mean, Fan the Hammer arguably is made for that, so yeah. So anyway, I wish that they made it so Magnetic Grenade, for one, like, dealt equal damage to everyone in the explosion instead of dealing double to the person who it originally stuck to, as long as they're close to the center. And 2, I kind of wish it auto-aimed a little bit less, but in return it would go a little bit further, so that it could work at medium range, because as I say, it's kind of pathetic that like I can throw it from here, and that's not close enough. It's kind of annoying. The amount of times that I throw a magnetic grenade at a Genji who's jumping me, as I say, I've run into a lot of Genjis as casts that I often have to end up dueling, and while it does go well a lot of the time, usually when it goes wrong is because there's a Genji at like medium range, and like I could definitely throw like a magnetic grenade at them, but like I'm just waiting to bait out their deflect so they don't deflect it. They finally deflect, and I'm like, okay, their deflect is gone, let me go for the magnetic grenade, and then they'll double jump as I press the magnetic grenade, and then because now they're above me, that means they're technically further away from me, so the magnetic grenade just explodes right in front of their face and doesn't hit them directly and barely does any damage. And it's like, you've got to be kidding me. So, yeah, it's really annoying when that happens, so I wish it went just a teensy bit further, because that happens to me so many times. Anyway, so honestly, I think a lot of the future cast might literally be Fan the Hammer spam, and I don't mean that as like a meme, like, seriously. It does a lot of damage. There's been situations where I've been able to run up to full health tanks and just up close duel them as cast and win that. Because the only main downside of Fan the Hammer, of course, is that you have to reload afterwards, but if you get an elimination, then the reload's faster, so it's not that bad. And you need to be close, because of course it's got an extremely wide spread, and the increased movement speed from getting elimination helps with that. So if you get up close to a tank, a big fat target that's really easy to hit all these widely spreading bullets on, I think every Fan the Hammer is 300 damage if I remember correctly. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, that would look to be 100 health. Here's the test, 70 damage plus punch. Yeah, 300 per Fan the Hammer. So, and of course these bullets cannot headshot from Fan the Hammer, because if they could, that would be stupid. You know, it'd be complete chance, basically. So yeah, 300 damage if every bullet from Fan the Hammer lands. So I can just walk up to a tank and be like, okay, here's 300 damage, dodge roll, here's another 300 damage. Oh, you're dead.
Not every fight's a fair one.
And that's Roadhog. That's a 700 health character. I've mostly been doing it with Reinhardt. Yes, Reinhardt. I've been getting into close range duels with Reinhardts and winning just because I go and then they're that low already.
Don't fancy getting hammered on the job.
So yeah. Anyway, there's nothing new with High Noon. Sorry, Deadeye. I forget it's called Deadeye. I always call it High Noon. There's nothing new with Deadeye. it's still a pretty garbage ultimate, all things considered. There is one thing that's not new about it, but I know that a decent amount of people don't know about it, so I may as well show it off in this video. There's like a kind of secondary use for High Noon. So I'm sure that most people know that when you use dodge roll as McCree, you instantly reload, which is the main use of dodge roll, really. Well, you also... Oh yeah, and I didn't even mention yet, dodge roll goes a little bit further than it used to, and you take half damage while using dodge roll now as well, which is nice. I actually find that very useful. But more importantly, though, there is another way you can instantly reload, and it's by instantly using High Noon and cancelling it. Well, you don't have to cancel it, but if you're using it to instant reload, you probably want to cancel it. So that does mean I can just show up to a Reinhardt and go, fan the hammer, dodge roll, fan the hammer, High Noon cancel, fan the hammer, and yeah.
It's a cold day in hell.
Now, I believe, as I say, I think that D.Va would be the single highest total health pool character in the game now, considering she only has 50 less health than Roadhog, but unlike Roadhog, she has an absolute shit ton of armor, which leads to her having more effective health. So being the single highest health target in the game, I need to know, can triple fan the hammer just instantly delete her? Which I think it will. I actually think it is enough damage, because it's essentially 3 fans the hammers is 900 damage. So yeah. Alright, here we go. Just need to get close enough that the bullets will all hit, and we... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Roll, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Cancel, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, more than enough. So yeah, I actually think Fan the Hammer is the future of Cass, I'm not kidding. And what can I say? It is really fun being the right-click Randy. Anyway, that's enough of Cass. Echo!
I am always ready to learn.
So I'm kind of surprised. Echo has really dropped off in Overwatch 2, which I didn't expect because I thought she was kind of stupid busted in Overwatch 1. Yeah, I didn't see her getting many changes in Overwatch 2. In fairness, the changes she did get were nerfs, but most of the nerfs didn't seem all that significant to me, so I didn't really think that she would drop off in usefulness that much. But I suppose I attribute that to the fact that she's a flying character who gets countered by hit scans, and, you know, hit scans good right now, generally. Snipers especially. So yeah, anyway, the changes that have happened to Echo are pretty simple. There's just 2. One of them is that Focusing Beam, which deals quadruple damage to targets with less than half health, has been nerfed. It used to deal 200 damage a second. Now it only deals 175. Oh, boo-hoo. And I hate this ability because it punishes tanks for simply existing, because of course they have larger health pools, you get more value off of beaming tanks. As if we don't have enough characters that exist to bully tanks. I suppose now it's not as much of an issue in Overwatch 2, but in Overwatch 1 it was painful. The other change is that Echo was even worse with bullying tanks because her ultimate, where she gets to copy another character and take their ultimate, was most useful on tanks because you have to actually build the ultimate first. And building the ultimate isn't that hard overall because you get ultimate charge way faster as a copy of them. But that doesn't at all mean that it's easy, because you could, if you've only got 200 health, if you copy someone with only 200 health, then you could get bursted down, considering everyone knows that you're ulting, and if they burst you down, then you won't be able to like take that copied ultimate. So yeah. Basically, now you might have noticed that I didn't get 650 health there. I did get her armor, but I only got 300 health. That is essentially the change. Now you're capped at 300 health whenever you use duplicate, so that you're not just always going to duplicate the tank so you can get multiple ultimates. Because yes, if you're fast enough, you can actually build multiple ultimates. I have once as Echo wiped an entire team because I copied their Zarya and got triple grab before the ult ran out, and it was stupid. It was just absolutely idiotic. So yeah, I'm kind of glad this character fell off, to be honest, because I'm not gonna lie. Echo makes me sad. Her ultimate is so cool, but that's the only thing I like about her. I literally dislike everything else about this character, and it's so sad because her ultimate is one of the coolest ultimates in the game, and I sometimes want to play her just so I can use her ultimate, and it's like, but I don't want to play Echo. I just want to use duplicate. Anyway. Genji. I mentioned that Genji is a great example of why these contextual changes actually matter a lot, even though they're not direct changes. Because Genji has received no changes from Overwatch 1 to Overwatch 2, and he went from probably one of the worst DPSs in the entire game in Overwatch 1 to one of the best DPSs in the entire game that's on the chopping block for nerfs most likely soon. So yeah, what happened? Well, mostly what stopped the Genji from being good in Overwatch 1, because you might be surprised even here he was bad. I mean, he's an extremely high skill ceiling hero with a lot of like advanced tech around him. Why would he be bad? Especially because Dragon Blade with Nano Boost has always been one of the strongest ult combos in the game, and it kind of still is. Well, what essentially made him fall off was the fact that now there was just so many stuns in the game that whenever a Genji tried to dive the backline of any team, well, he would get stunned. You would jump, like, I don't know, there's a Zen in the back line, it's like, okay, right, I'm Genji, it's my job to kill that Zen, slash in, wall climb up, I don't know, and then you just get up there, you land a shot on the Zen, and then just before you're about to kill him, the Brig standing next to them shows up, shield bashes you in the face, and then by the time you got that stun off of you, maybe the cast that was also standing nearby has turned around now and flashbangs you before you can run away, and now you're dead, and it's like, well, shit. And it doesn't help as well that, of course, having 2 tanks in Overwatch 1 and with shields being powerful, it was really hard to get in the first place with Genji, because teams were just like a fortress, and the second you ran in, everyone turned around on you and you just exploded. Now that, again, there's one less person on both teams and there's, you know, less shields and all that, it's easier for Genji to get in. The only real gameplay change with Genji is, of course, the DPS passive. That when you get a kill, you get to move faster, so you can chase people down faster, and of course that you get a slightly faster reload, although I don't think that matters as much for Genji because his reload's pretty fast anyway, and he has a lot of ammo before he needs to reload. But yeah, Genji, I feel like is doing just fine. I actually don't even know if I agree with necessarily nerfing him yet. I don't know. He certainly is annoying to deal with right now, and I do agree that he's kind of overtuned, but in a way I think it's kind of healthy for the game for Genji to be a little bit overpowered, which might sound weird, but like, let me put it this way. Everyone fucking loves Genji. Even like people who have only played Overwatch for 10 minutes and like, you know, don't know that much about it. Probably one of the only characters they remember is Genji. You know, Genji's just kind of a lovable character in this game. People like him and people love how cool he looks and how high skill ceiling he is. And so I feel like it is a good thing for the game for Genji to be a good character. Now, I'm not saying that Genji needs to be good forever. Once Genji gets just annoying enough, I'm fine with a nerfing him, but I don't know, considering it's the launch of Overwatch 2 and it still hasn't been that long, and considering people love playing Genji and all that, and love seeing Genji do well, I actually kind of don't have a problem with Genji being this good, especially because, for the most part, what makes Genji this good is mostly just people playing at extremely high skill ceilings. That being said, I do agree, he's a little bit overpowered. The main thing I want to address is what you're seeing right now. If you didn't realize, the way that you really kind of play Genji, a lot of the time you're using this triple shuriken attack at close range so that all 3 shurikens hit, and if you can dink it right in their head, yeah, they're dead that quick. Because these shurikens deal 29 damage each, headshots double it, and then on top of that, if you're throwing 3 shurikens at once, that triples it. So you've got 29 times 3, which is 87 damage, then doubled, which is 174. Yep. Which means they only have 26 health left. And then there's melee, which deals 30. And melee has no startup lag. It has end lag, but it has no startup lag. So you can just delete someone from full health like this. You can just do that as Genji. Now, that doesn't make Genji necessarily overpowered, because most characters, unlike these training bots, have small and hard-to-hit heads. And as well as that, you've got to actually get close enough without them doing anything about it to, you know, get that clear shot in their head. Yeah, I forgot that's going to insta-killer. Get that clear shot on your head and just go... Chingful, dead.
After you.
But especially keeping in mind that his slash gets instantly reset after every kill he gets. Being able to just get another slash like that is kind of terrifying. What I would like to see, this was something that one of the fake leaked nerfs that didn't end up being real said was going to happen, and I actually hope this does happen, is that they nerf the damage of the shurikens very slightly, just so that you can't kill them with one, like, swipe melee. I want that to put them on, like, 1 health, but not kill them. What I would like is that you can still kill them in 1 combo, but the way you have to do it is with a slash into a triple shuriken to the head. Because that would actually still be crazy powerful if you're a good Genji. It would still kill them instantly before they could react, but it would take more skill because you'd have to get like a good idea for the distance at which you would slash for you to land right behind their head. And then as well as that, since you get your slash back instantly if you get a kill, that means that if you're a good Genji and you can perform this consistently without messing it up, then you're rewarded because there's no punishment. When you jump in and do that, you can jump right out. You got your slash back. However, if you go in and you're not a skilled Genji and you miss that shot or you misjudge the distance, then you've made a massive risk there, because now you have 8 seconds to wait before you can get out, because your slash won't be recharged, or you just have to win that duel to get it to recharge, and all you have is deflect to save you. I like that, because it means that then the good Genjis are still able to insta-delete people from a mile away like that, and be extremely powerful, but you would have to be an extremely confident and effective Genji to do that. And I think that's really what Genji should be. I mean, I think that no one's going to debate that Genji should probably be, like, the especially high skill ceiling DPS to, like, strive towards, like, you know, if you know what I mean. Considering how much of a fan favorite he is, and considering it is kind of healthy for the game for him to be good, I want him to be the most kind of difficult to play, but rewarding if you know all that stuff. And I'm saying that as someone who doesn't really play Genji that much and is not very good with him. But yeah, Hanzo. Don't have much to say about Hanzo, I suppose. He's in a very weird spot right now where he's simultaneously great and terrible, but probably more terrible than great. So he's technically a sniper, kind of like Ashe and Widowmaker, but of course, unlike them, he's a projectile, not a hit scan. And while that does mean he can still one-shot people from miles away, it also means that, well, he is not going to hit them instantly. People are going to be able to have some time to dodge his shots, which becomes quite a problem. It means you have to predict where people are going to move. And it sounds like a small issue, but seriously, when you look at, like, good players, good hit scan players can sometimes just seriously never fucking miss. Whereas when you play with characters with projectiles, even if you're really good with them, you're gonna miss sometimes still. It makes a lot more of a difference than you might think. So I think that that's why Hanzo isn't quite doing as well as Widow and Ashe. As well as that, whereas Widow and Ashe, like, they both have escape tools, even if they're not the best, to get away if they get jumped. What happens if Hanzo gets jumped? He does this. And then he dies. Now, of course, that means that Hanzo just doesn't run. Instead, he turns around and fights. And in fact, he is pretty good at that, considering, well, even if I don't headshot, because let's say they're a difficult to hit target and I'm just getting body shots. Still a lot of damage. You still kill extremely stupidly quick on Hanzo. And in fact, on that note, I'm sorry, I have to do this. One of the reasons why I really hate Hanzo is because, despite the fact he's designed to be a sniper, you can actually just play him as not a sniper at all. You can play him up close and get away with it, just because he can deal this much damage whenever he wants to. Yep. You can just do that. If I remember correctly, if you headshot with every one of these arrows from Storm Arrows, I think it's 650 damage. Yeah, that looks like 650. It took 2 melees to finish him off, and a melee is 30. So yeah, I can just deal 650 damage to someone in front of me whenever I want. And I can insta-kill a Roadhog like that, like shooting a barely charged arrow afterwards. So yeah, I kind of don't like that Hanzo can just walk up to a tank and delete them for full health, even a tank like Roadhog, just by pressing the E key every 10 seconds. And that's why Hanzos can often get away with just walking up in the front lines, even though he's literally supposed to be a sniper who, like, goes for skill shots. Anyway, that's why I don't like Hanzo, because obviously as a tank player I find that miserable. And of course, there's nothing more miserable than being invisible as Sombra and running around, and the Hanzo just misses an arrow, but just so happens to hit you in the head while you're invisible when you didn't even know you were there. Oh my god, I hate that. That happens to me way too many fucking times. Anyway, so yeah, the reason why Hanzo's in a really weird spot is because he does have one thing which makes him good, despite all these downsides I mentioned, and that is, of course, that his damage is through the fucking roof. And this means that in lower skill ceilings, Hanzo's still going to be really good. He's in a group with, I would bundle in Hanzo, Junkrat, and Reaper all into the same group, where these characters are going to be very good at low skill ceilings, regardless of whether they're necessarily good at higher skill ceilings, just because they can kill so fast that healing will not save you and shields will not save you. Their damage is just through the roof. If a Reinhardt puts a shield up against Junkrat, it's dead in a few seconds. And if you're a good Reinhardt, you probably won't even bother shielding a Junkrat unless you're definitely going to save someone's life with it. So yeah, similar kind of thing with Hanzo, I feel. Anyway, yeah, another reason why these characters are going to be good at low skill ceilings is because one of the biggest mistakes I see people making when I'm playing is simply not killing the supports in Overwatch 2. It's easier to go for them because they all, for the most part, have to be self-sufficient now. It's less likely they're going to get someone to peel for them. And as well as that, I'm noticing that I don't know if there really is more healing output in Overwatch 2 or if it's just something to do with there being less people to heal. but I've noticed that it is extremely hard to kill people without killing their supports in Overwatch 2. When people complain about Orisa being an unkillable tank, despite the fact that she's actually one of the hardest ones to stay alive with, in my opinion, it's because they do not understand that they need to kill the supports. The only time Orisa becomes an unkillable, unstoppable force that runs over teams is either if they're a very skilled Orisa who always lands their javelins and kills you before you can do a lot of damage, or the more common outcome is because they're actually just an average Orisa, but they're getting away with everything because every single time they take any amount of damage, their Mercy just heals them up to full, and no one even tries to fight the Mercy. You see, this is the weakness with Orisa. This is why Orisa, I feel, isn't quite as strong as some people say, is that even though, I'm not saying she's bad, I'm just saying she's not broken or anything, is that even though she's pretty good at holding her own in a fight, she doesn't have many tools to actually prevent people from encroaching into her space. She has Javelin, but she has to hit the Javelin, and she can kind of push people away with the Javelin spin, but she doesn't really have, you know, a shield like Reinhardt. She doesn't have, like, a rock like Sigma. Well, again, Javelin is kind of like rock, but rock's a bigger kind of projectile, so it's easier to land on a difficult-to-hit target like Genji. You know, she doesn't have a really easy, what the hell are you doing in my space? I'm the tank, I'm not letting you in here, you know, get fucked. You know, that's what Zarya would do with her bubbles, that's what Reinhardt would do with his shield and his hammer, that's what even Junker would do with her axe and maybe her throwing knife, what Doomfist would do with his punch, even. And then with Orisa, it's like, you either land that Javelin, which can be pretty hard to do on smaller, more agile targets, or everyone behind you gets stampeded, and you're left alone as the only one left alive. And if you're the only one left alive as Orisa, then you'll see how fast Orisa can die. So yeah, anyway, a bit of a side tangent, but this is why these high burst damage potential characters are probably still going to be decent for most people, even though like they're not really necessarily meta right now, is because people are making the mistake of not killing the supports, and the only way you can really get kills if you are making the mistake of not killing the supports is just having so much burst damage that you can kill people before they can even receive any healing, which is what Hanzo can do, what Junkrat can do, what Reaper can do. And arguably both the snipers as well, Ashe and Widowmaker, although I think it more applies to these three. So yeah. Sorry, I distracted because this animation is so good. I love the new Junkrat animation. But yeah, that's not to say that you should pick these necessarily. I think that typically, like, if we're talking about a perfect situation where everyone's perfectly skilled, you should instead be picking a character who's really good for jumping their supports and killing them off. But obviously, realistically, sometimes you just get in a game, and maybe you're good, but you're not that good, you can't carry your entire team or whatever, and your team just will not listen to you when you tell them that the supports need to die first. And if that happens, then I could see the best course of action just being pick Hanzo, pick Junkrat or whatever, and just anytime you get in a fight with anyone that's getting pocketed by a support, just hit them with such an enormous wall of damage that they die before they can receive any of it. Anyway, so there's Junkrat to say. Not much else to say because it's basically everything I just said. He, I think, didn't really receive any changes. Oh yes, he can throw his steel trap a little bit further, which is obviously a very small change. And his steel trap, while it's still one of the weaker abilities in Overwatch, is not as bad as it used to be, considering now it is actually like a true, like, proper stun. Like, you know, you can't, well, I say now. In the betas, there was a small period of time in which trap only was significantly slow and you could still move in a trap. Now they reverted it back to it actually does trap you inside it, you can't move at all. And of course, since most stuns are gone, that's actually more valuable. As well as that, I think trap does more damage now. Does 100. But yeah, by the way, I just realized, just a quick reminder, I know that most of you know this, but I really have to put it in perspective. Literally never fight a Junkrat up close. Like, just important tip there. Never, ever fight a Junkrat up close. Because, well, dead. That's fair. Let me switch it to maybe a character with a bit more health. What about Reaper? He's got 250 health. Surely he could survive. Well, barely. I don't know if I count that really surviving, but yeah. Cass, 225, definitely won't. Dead. Yeah, Junkrat can just delete people at close range. Don't even try. just make sure you stay as far away from him as possible and then pick him off from the distance if you can. Anyway, so yeah, Junkrat is doing a little bit better than he used to, though, even at higher ranks. Not that he's necessarily good at higher ranks yet, but he used to be garbage at higher ranks, but, like, only good at low ranks. He's doing better at high ranks currently because he can launch himself further with his mind than he used to be able to. And as well as that, the new DPS passive, again, just there's a lot of characters it benefits a lot. Junkrat's another one of them. Basically, the flanking Junkrat playstyle, where you just launch yourself into the back line of the enemy team and like scoop them all up from the back, is doing a lot better than it used to. It's still certainly a counterable playstyle, but if you simply jump on them fast enough, they just might not be able to react correctly to be able to counter you, because, you know, you do kill them in like under half a second once you get the chance. So yeah. Anyway, then there's Mei. I was planning on playing a lot of Mei when Overwatch 2 came out, because I really like what they did with her, but I ended up not playing her that much because her wall was bugged, and I really like messing with her wall a lot, and I knew that even I couldn't like ever get used to the wall being bugged and not using it. Now I think they might have fixed it by now, but I'm not sure. I need to play with it a bit more, I think. Okay, never mind, they have not fixed it. The last time I tested it, it did glitch out way less than it used to. It used to be like every time. But yeah, basically, if you try and build a wall under your feet now, sometimes it just doesn't work. I'm jumping right now. Do you see what I mean? Yeah, the wall is not very stable, which is kind of a sick shame, because I absolutely love launching myself around with walls. Like, I do it all the time on Mei, just instinctively without thinking. So that's why I couldn't play with this change, even though I think Mei is good. That being said, as I say, I think Mei is good. The main reason for that is because, well, her primary fire actually kills people now, like, unironically. Like, she's actually terrifying now. Because before, her primary fire, you could kill people with it, but it didn't deal much damage at all. It only dealt 50 damage a second, which for a short-range weapon is not very good. Again, Junkrat can deal 120 damage per bullet. Mei only gets 50 damage per second. But the reason for that is, of course, because she can freeze people. You know, they start out normal speed. The longer you hold the beam on them, they get slower and slower. And then when they hit 100% slow, that's when they get frozen. And then they can't move, and then you headshot them with an icicle because they can't move, and then they're probably dead. So that's how it goes, of course. But now, there's no more stuns in the game for the most part. So what happens to Mei, because freeze is a stun? Well, they doubled her damage output on her spray, but they made it so that it can't freeze anymore. But also, to compensate for that, it doesn't build the slow now. Instead, the second you attach the beam to someone, they have a 50% slow, and it stays until you detach this beam. Which means that you can chase people down as Mei way more effectively now, even though you can't get the full freeze, because they die this fast. Which maybe that doesn't look crazy fast to you right now, because, you know, we've been playing a bunch of characters who can headshot and they got big, easy heads to shoot. But, like, in an actual game where it can be really hard to hit, like, small moving targets, being able to kill them this fast, just by holding a spray on them, is pretty good. Now, it's really easy to keep the spray on it, because it's got a wide area of effect, and, you know, just generally, you can't really dodge the spray for the most part. But of course, they could just get out of range, right? Well, every time you get an elimination, you get a speed boost, so at that point you'll be able to outrun them, then they can't get out of range. And as well as that, if you even get a tap on them, just a tap, they basically already have their chances of running away ruined unless they have any movement abilities. Because, as I say, 50% slow. That means you're walking at double the speed as them. So yeah, Mei can more than doubly outrun someone, because you can get double from the 50% slow, and then more than double from the 25% movement increase, like, buff from killing someone. So yeah, you can absolutely chase entire teams down as Mei and just mow them over by holding down left click. And on top of that, her right click even got buffed as well. Icicles now use up less ammo. They only use up 10. I think they used to use 20 before, which is kind of stupid. I think she used to have 100 ammo, now she has 150. I think that was the case. So yeah, I really like these changes overall. I just want them to make the wall work. Oh yeah, and her ultimate, I think, is even stronger than it used to be, even though it hasn't really received any changes, I don't think. Just because it still freezes. It's the only part of her kit that still freezes. And of course, stuns are more valuable in this game, as I say, because there's less of them. So an ultimate that can mass freeze people in an area, which I already thought was one of the stronger DPS ultimates in the game, that now can do that in a game where most stuns have been removed, especially ones that last longer than half a second. Very useful. There's Pharah. Now I have no idea why you would want to play Pharah in Overwatch 2, but if you're that guy, if you want to play Pharah, then there's really not much new here. Basically, if you land a direct hit with Concussive Blast, it will now deal 30 damage instead of dealing 0 damage, and it will knock people twice as far away as it would normally. Obviously on the outer ring it deals 0 damage still, and knocks people the same distance still. The only other change that she has received is that well, it's actually very weirdly specific. I don't know if there's anything else in the game that works like this. I don't think so. So now, if I fire off some rockets and I manually reload, her reload's the same as normal. However, if I fire off all 6 rockets and the automatic reload kicks in, then I reload a small amount faster. I don't know why they made this change, but they sure made this change. And yeah, that's literally everything that's different with Pharah. Yeah. I've never been a fan of Pharah. Anyway, Reaper. So I'm not gonna lie, Reaper is kind of terrifying now. He's... Again, I don't think he's overpowered at high levels necessarily, but he's definitely, out of the 3 characters I mentioned that are like burst damage, out of the Junkrat, Hanzo, Reaper trio, Reaper's definitely the most OP right now. Reason for that being that you might have been surprised by this. There are other people predicting that Reaper would be garbage in Overwatch 2 because he's supposed to counter tanks, but there's only 1 tank now, so surely he would be bad. But honestly, he's kind of terrifying. So all they really did to him that was a non-contextual, like, direct change is, I believe they slightly reduced his damage numerically, but they actually really effectively increased it because they made his spread tighter, and that means more of your pellets land. So yeah, he only deals less damage at, like, point-blank range. Like, I don't know for sure, but I think I could one-shot this cast before at point-blank range, and now I can't. But in general, normal combat, like fighting at this range or whatever, you are dealing more damage now than you used to. Which makes Reaper pretty terrifying, because his damage is already through the roof, and he already gets lifesteal for dealing damage. Which is 20% if I remember right. 20% of the damage you deal, you heal. So yes, and of course the DPS passive is amazing for Reaper, because the only thing he needs to be able to absolutely obliterate people is to be close enough to shoot them. And of course, it's easy to get close enough to shoot people if you can outrun them. So yeah, he's just going to run up to people, and once he's got 1 kill, he can do what I kind of mentioned with Cass, like chaining from the hammers. He can just chain kills like this, just like, oh, that person's dead, I can now outrun this person and get them dead, and get them dead, and you can just run over teams like that. On top of that, of course, Reaper's always been made to go for the back line, because he can just teleport onto some high ground, and then, I don't know, say there's an Ana right there, and just jump behind him, boom, 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 dead. And of course, if they're going to go for an anti-nade or a sleep dart, Wraith form. So yeah, Reaper's kind of terrifying right now. You might have thought, though, that surely Reaper wouldn't be dominating because surely he would just get countered by the enemy DPS, considering, you know, he's only really countering the tank and maybe the supports. Well, actually, when you look at the DPS roster, not many of these DPS are good against Reaper. Like, this is what I mean mostly when I talk about how scary Reaper is. He's kind of in a similar place to Roadhog right now, where when you get in a fight with Reaper, if it's a one-on-one, almost no one in the game wins that fight. If you dogpile on him, yeah, sure, you can obliterate him. But if you're in a one-on-one fight with Reaper, which is what's going to happen most of the time if you're playing with randoms with no communication, then you have very few characters who actually have a favourable matchup there. And essentially, if we look at even just the DPS, like, it's a given that basically every tank in the roster is going to have a bad matchup against Reaper. If you look at the DPS, you might say that the snipers, Ashe and Widow, would have a good matchup against him. Well, in theory, because the counter to Reaper would be fighting him at range instead of up close. But of course, he's not going to start fighting you at range, he's going to fight you up close. So, you're probably not going to know that he's there to fight you until he's already teleported within 3 steps of you. So, considering you're now forced into a close-range battle, unless you're a cracked, like, sniper who can just land headshots on up-close with fast-moving targets, yeah, I don't think you're going to be able to actually win that. I think it's actually an unfavourable matchup for Widow or Ashe, unless they can easily reposition and then fire at him from long range. But even if you can do that, he probably just Wraith forms and gets to cover. Unless it's on a map where he just doesn't have much cover, you can probably get away before you can get a kill on him. You might be able to save your own life, but you won't really deal with the Reaper. Bastion is one of the few DPS who I think actually counters Reaper. You just go into your assault form and you melt him. And you can do that from medium range, which is perfect, because usually you'll be fighting Reaper from medium range. You know, it's ideal to fight him from long range, but you probably won't get that luxury. He's probably going to start fighting you either at medium range or close range. And so having a character who can obliterate him at medium range is perfect, because he's just far enough away that, like, he can't kill you with burst damage, although he can still deal a good amount of damage. But yet he's not so far away that, you know, it's unrealistic that, like, you'd get in a situation like that. Anyway, Sebastian's one of the best counters to Reaper, I think, right now. Cass, you would think... Oh, sorry, I accidentally nudged my controller. No. Cass, you would think, would be a good counter to Reaper, because he plays at medium range, and I was just saying medium range is good. But I would say that it's more an even matchup. It's even because you do have Fan the Hammer, which can burst down the Reaper just as much as Reaper's shotguns can burst down you, and you can fight him at long range with your pistol and get a few good shots on him, and that might finish him off. But the thing that sucks, that means that it's not a favourable matchup like it used to be with Flashbang, is Magnetic Grenade is useless against Reaper, because he gets a whole second and a bit to decide, oh, it stuck to me, oh, I guess I should press Wraith Form and have the grenade just fall through me and deal 0 damage to me. And then you use Magnetic Grenade to deal 1 damage to him just for sticking onto him, and then it instantly falls off. It's like, well, shit. So yeah, I don't think Cass is actually that great against Reaper. I think he's just more of an even matchup. Flying characters, in fairness, probably counter Reaper, Echo and Pharah, just because they're in the sky. They can easily get away and they can harass him from the sky. Genji, okay, I'm not a Genji player, I can't speak on this, but I would imagine that Genji's a rough matchup. Yeah, I will grant that, yeah, you can do a decent amount of damage with Genji and you'll be decent at medium range, and that sounds like all good, but considering that Reaper can still kill you in 2 shots, and considering that for you to really do good burst damage so that he's not healing from the lifesteal or the damage you deal back, you need to land those triple shurikens to the head, so you need to get pretty close. I don't know, he just needs one good up-close shot to your body to kill you, whereas you need to land a triple shuriken into his head, which is going to be a lot more difficult. So, I'm not a Genji player, maybe if you're a good Genji player you'll beg to differ, but I would get the impression that Genji's not great against Reaper. Hanzo's probably one of the better ones, I guess, as well, because just an arrow headshot could finish that one off. Junkrat, I would say, is even. Don't get me wrong, Junkrat is better than most DPS against Reaper, but let's be real. Yes, he does have insane burst damage up close, so does Reaper. Both Reaper and Junkrat can just delete each other in 1 to 2 shots at close range. So it's more just who pulls the trigger faster. I would say that Junkrat would still win there, because Junkrat has a bit more up-close burst damage than Reaper most of the time, but then Junkrat doesn't have something like Wraith Form, whereas if a Reaper reacts quickly to a Junkrat jumping him, he can just use Wraith Form, Wraith right through the mine explosion, and then shoot him one more time and probably finish him off. Mei's decent against Reaper, but often isn't necessarily quick to kill him. She's good at challenging him, but without help from the rest of her team, it's often hard for her to chase him down when he tries to run away. Yeah, we talked about Pharah. Obviously, Reaper mirrors even. Soujorn, I think, is actually one of the better characters for countering Reaper, just because you can railgun him to the head and also fighting him at medium range with your normal primary fire. Soldier is okay, but honestly, I still think Soldier's just an even matchup. No, actually, I would say Soldier's a decent matchup, because you can outrun Reaper with Sprint. But yeah, it is a little bit rough, just because, again, if you were fighting him at long range, it'd be easy, but at medium range, he can react to your Helix Rocket and go right through it, and because he's got so much health and lifesteal and all that, it's hard to really finish him off. Sombra, you get nothing off of hacking Reaper. Bad matchup. Symmetra, you can only really win that matchup against Reaper if you already have max beam charge, and if you already have, sentry turrets or teleporters placed to, plan ahead and, win that fight. So, yeah, you can counter Reaper with Symmetra, but, you kind of already need things in your favor before you even start the fight. If you're just talking about a normal Reaper walks in and you haven't planned anything, yeah, Symmetra definitely fucking loses that. Torb probably loses as well, unless maybe his turret, but I don't know. Tracer's probably an even one, I suppose. Maybe a slightly positive one, because, you can... it's really hard for the Reaper to land a good shot on you, but then if the Reaper lands one good shot on you, he can kill you from full health. So, I don't know. So, yeah, and of course, I already talked about Widowmaker. I think I've made my point. You'd think that the DPS, it would be their job to counter Reaper, but a lot of them are either even matchups, bad matchups, or only good matchups in circumstances which aren't likely to be the case. Reaper can just walk up to and murder half the DPS in the game, and considering he can also just walk up to and murder most of the tanks in the game, except maybe a good Roadhog, that means that it comes down often to the supports to deal with Reaper. So now you can probably see why Reaper's running rampant, because it's kind of rough having to deal with a Reaper on your own as a support. I mean, it makes the most sense, though, because the Reaper's usually going to go for the supports first, because, the supports are the backline, and Reaper's supposed to flank the backline. That being said, it's not hopeless. The supports do actually have decent tools to deal with Reaper. Ana, of course, has Sleep Dart, and most supports that aren't Ana, or, any support that isn't Ana, Bap, or Zen, have an escape tool so that they can get away from the Reaper where he can't deal good burst damage. Lucio, of course, has wall riding, Mercy has flying, Moira has fade, Brig actually has shield bash now, shield bash is good for that, and whip shot also knocks him away, and Kiriko has teleport. As I say, for Ana it's sleep dart, for Bap it's more you just have to stand and fight, but considering you have insane DPS and a hit scan weapon for a support, and you have that immortality field, and you have enough self-healing to have effectively over 400 health, I still don't think that's that rough. The only one it's like really rough for is Zen, but that's by design, because Zen's made to be overpowered, but if he gets jumped, then he's like screwed. So yeah. Anyway, that's enough about Reaper. I had to cover why Reaper's so prominent right now and just kind of walking over everything, even though there's only one tank. I think, even though Reaper quote-unquote counters tanks, I actually think that it's the removal of the off-tank that's led to Reaper being this good. Because the off-tank, again, they would usually be the ones protecting the back line, and Reaper goes to the back line. And so I mentioned one of the only tanks that's good at dealing with Reaper is Roadhog. You know, usually you would have someone playing the front line and a Roadhog, you know, defending the back line, and if Reaper went for the back line, they just get hooked. But now, the Roadhog has to play the front line if you do have a Roadhog, and if you don't have a Roadhog, if you have someone like a Reinhardt, well then they can't do anything about Reaper, they get, like, destroyed by Reaper. So, yeah. Anyway, Soujorn, the new DPS.
We're in this together.
Bit of a controversial character, because they are basically unquestionably the best DPS in the game right now. Reason for that being, oh yeah, they have 225. The reason for that being, of course, the railgun. So of course, I fire some shots from my primary fire, which already does a decent amount of damage. It isn't a hit scan, it is a projectile. It does have a small amount of spread, but it's pretty accurate all things considered. And as you land shots, of course, it charges your railgun, and then once it's charged, ding.
Pinpoint accuracy.
So this deals 130 damage, which on its own would not be that terrifying. That's a little bit less than a direct hit from Soldier's Helix rocket. Of course, where this becomes stupid is when you take into account the fact that this can headshot, and it's a hit scan with no damage fall off and infinite range. Which means at any range, I can just deal 260 damage to someone as long as I can click on their head. Oh, shit. So yeah, you can see why that's pretty terrifying. Now, I actually have kind of changed my opinion on Soujorn's design. When I first saw her, like, first saw her in the alpha, I really wasn't a fan of her just because I was like, oh, she's kind of bland. And don't get me wrong, her kit is a little bit bland. But I actually really like her, just because I'm realizing why they made this character. At first I thought it's just like, oh, flashy railgun, isn't that like really cool and flashy looking? It's just kind of, you know, for the, oh, that looks cool factor. But honestly, there is actually a genuinely good game design factor to this. And that is, there is no worse feeling in Overwatch when the enemy team is just an impenetrable fortress that you can't even step foot in. And for whatever reason, whether it's your team uncooperative, someone's locked in a character who just gets hard countered by the enemy's comp and they refuse to switch, something like that. If something like that's going on and you just can't seem to deal with the situation on your own, it feels miserable to have to keep playing that game out and keep, like, running directly at this wall of damage and shields and dying continuously, knowing you're going to die continuously, but knowing that you literally can't do anything about it, unless you want to try feeding and going for crazy flanks on your own with no help in a 5v1. And you know, in those kind of situations, it feels hopeless. And Soujorn really helps with those hopeless games, because Soujorn is one of the only characters in the game that can basically... I don't know, I don't think there's a single situation in which Soujorn can't win, in theory. Because, at the end of the day, it may be a difficult shot to pull off, but Soujorn could always just flip a game by just... There could always just be a moment where maybe you've got, like, a control point map, and they've had the point all game, and you've barely been able to set foot on it, and you've not been able to do anything to the supports, so everyone's been getting enormous amounts of healing. Say they've got, like, I don't know, a Brig and an Ana. And the Ana is just sitting at the back, pumping their Rhine full of constant healing. They're never dying because of the fact they're getting pumped with constant healing. Your team isn't doing a good job of diving the supports. It just seems like a hopeless game. And of course, you can't even get close enough to this Ana to do anything. And the second you even try, because you're going in alone, everyone jumps on you and kills you before you can get there. What can you even do about this? And then all you do is you just build up some railgun charge of Soujorn, get a nice angle where you can see the Ana, but she can't see you. Yeah, just line it up on her head and boom. Insta-deleted her from full health across the map. And this is, of course, a really cool kind of, you know, X-Factor you can use to completely flip a losing game. Because once you've got that one pick, it can be like, that's our time to go in now.
because now they're support down, now you can track down the Brig and kill them, now they've got no healing, then if you can hit the Reinhardt, then you've just got two disparate DPSs with like no help around them, and then you can pick them off, and then you've won from that. You know, you can have these game-flipping situations where it seems hopeless, and you can solo carry and save the game as Soujorn. Not that solo carries can't happen on other characters, but this is like the solo carry character. Because, as I say, one well-placed railgun shot can insta-kill anyone that isn't a tank in the entire game, except Bastion. Even Torbjörn, it doesn't insta-kill him, like, on the spot, but it may as well, you'll see. See that? That's how much health he has left. So he may as well be insta-killed by it. So yeah, I actually really like this about Soujorn. I think that's good design, actually, because at the end of the day, there's always going to be metas where certain things are more powerful and blah blah blah, and while it is obviously still worthwhile trying to balance things, I think it's good to have a character in the game that always has the potential to just flip any losing situation, even if, like, the deck's stacked against you, just by simply being, you know, really fucking good at getting an insane railgun shot off. I mean, I love that about this character. That being said, I did mention they're currently like the most broken DPS in the game. Like, if you watch any Overwatch League, I don't think I've seen anyone play any DPS in Overwatch League except just constant Soujorn Genji, Soujorn Genji, Soujorn Genji. I don't know, there's the occasional Widowmaker on a good sniper map, or sometimes they'll start the game as Symmetra, place a teleporter, and then switch back to, like, Genji or Soujorn. But, yeah, Soujorn and Genji is just everywhere. Get Soujorn even more so than Genji. Now, the reason for this is just simply, well, it's very simple. It's not just that Railgun is an enormous, like, game-flipping kind of tool, but if it was just that, I don't think that Soujorn would be so popular at all ranks. I think that Soujorn would be deeply unpopular at lower ranks if it was just this high skill ceiling ability being able to flip any game at any time. The reason why I think that Soujorn is dominating at all ranks and is extremely powerful is very simple. She just deals a shit ton of damage. Like, her primary fire, keep in mind, this is a primary fire, like, not a special ability. It's not, like, it's crazy strong or anything, like, Soldier probably has a better primary fire, but, like, let's be real, that ain't weak. And even if you're not going for headshots, if you're just going for body shots on the railgun, well, I mean, I can show it off. Let's get Roadhog up. Let's see how quickly we can deal 700 damage to a Roadhog. So, let's say, I'm going to wait for my charge to deplete. Let's say we get in a fight with this Roadhog. We're not going to play skillfully. We're just going to shoot him, and we're just going to pelt him full of bullets, and we're not going to go for headshots. And yeah, we're just going to do this. Okay, so that's an unfortunate time to have to reload, but you see the point.
Precision
So,
and control.
obviously it's not insanely fast, but considering that this is a no-skill kind of thing, where we literally just have to land a shot anywhere on this big, fat target, that's a lot of damage to be doing in that short amount of time without having to land difficult headshots or anything. So, yeah, I don't know if this is the best change. Not a DPS player, and I could see it becoming frustrating if this change is made to play Soujorn, but it might be that the best change for her is just to make her primary fire weaker. To make it so that it's hard to build up railgun charge in the first place, because you need to land primary fire shots to get that railgun charge. And I think that railgun does need to stay as it is. I think that I could entertain, like, nerfing the damage a bit, but, like, I feel like you can't take away the hit scan, infinite range, no damage, fall loss, one-shot capabilities of it. That's the whole point of it, and I don't think that should ever really change. Oh yeah, by the way, that's how fast I can delete tanks with headshots. If you think Orissas can't die, go up to an Orisa as Soujorn, and well... Yep, they can die. Anyway, I just realised I barely talked to her about her abilities, because of course the most important thing about her is this railgun. Well, she does have this slide jump, which is very nice for mobility. You don't have to jump at the end of it, but you know, you almost always will, because you'll get double the distance from it. And as well as that, she's got Disruptor Shot, which I understand why it's seldom talked about, because the railgun is, like, obviously a lot more flashy. But I'm not gonna lie, I think Disruptor Shot is also a very powerful ability, like, very powerful. Even though it's kind of simple. Simple as shoot an orb, it goes out until it either runs out of range or hits an enemy or hits a wall. And obviously, as you can see, it creates this electrical aura, and inside of that, enemies move slower and take continuous damage. Now, although the technical, like, literal DPS of it, like, for every second they stand inside it, isn't that high, I actually still stand by. It's a surprisingly effective damaging ability, because as you can see, if for some reason they can't leave the area, it does a lot of damage before it runs out. Let's take a 250 health character like Reaper. I don't know exactly how much it is. Can it kill a Reaper from full health? No. It looks to deal either 200 or maybe 210 damage. But still, against most squishies, you can actually kill them from full health without having to land a single bullet on them with one disruptor shot, if you can trap them in a situation where they literally can't escape it. Which, don't get me wrong, isn't necessarily super common, but you're not exactly needing to kill them with only disruptor shot. A lot of the time, disruptor shot will get them half dead, and then from there, you know, you just land a few shots to your main fire, and then even if they're about to get away, landing a couple shots of primary fire will give you a little bit of railgun charge, and then you just, boom, get them with the railgun before they run away. So yeah, I think disruptor shot is really effective. Like, it's very simple, but it's just insanely effective from what I've seen. To say, like, when this training bot comes back round, it starts moving to the left, and I'm like, I'm going to jump on them, and I know the only way they can escape is through that door. I just jump through, disrupt the I took longer to get hit that door. But let's say he was coming here. Like, now he's got a kind of dilemma where it's like, well, I've got to run through here if I want to live, but if I run through there, I take all this damage. Or I can stand and fight and see if I can win the duel against the Soujorn. The amount of times they choose to run, I think it's actually a misplay. I'm not sure, of course, it's always debatable, but I feel like generally when a Soujorn covers your exit with a disruptor shot and then tries to fight you, you're actually better off just standing and fighting the Soujorn in that spot and not going through the disruptor shot. But most people I see don't do that. They try to run through the disruptor shot and they basically half kill themselves for me. And because they're slowed by the disruptor shot, they usually don't outrun me. And even if they can outrun me, well, I just mentioned, you know, railgun. It may not do max damage when it's not fully charged, but it still does damage. And oh boy, you cannot dodge that shot. Oh, my internet dropped. Yeah, you can't really do much about that. So anyway, Soldier 76. I really like what they did with him. They made very few changes, but the changes they made are really nice in my opinion. Essentially, in Overwatch 1, at the end of Overwatch 1's life, Soldier 76 was kind of a menace. Because I'm not sure if he was really, really overpowered at higher levels, but he certainly was not bad at higher levels, and he was kind of scary to deal with just because his damage output was simply insanely high. It makes sense, I guess. He's a basic character who doesn't provide that much utility, so I guess it makes sense his damage is through the roof, but my god. You used to be able to kill like 200 health targets with 5 bullets of this thing, which shoots that fast, if you were accurate enough. And this gun is currently a hit scan, which is also 1% accurate. The only thing that you have to deal with is, as you can see, it has vertical recoil. I am not moving my mouse right now. However, you can control the vertical recoil. If I just slightly move my mouse downwards as I fire this, you can see that I can basically keep it firing in the exact same spot. And I'm pretty sure that, if I remember correctly, the recoil is only on the vertical axis. It has no horizontal recoil. So you can see I can pretty easily, even on small heads like Reapers, even at medium like range, I can keep it dead on that head and just delete him that fast. That fast he's just gone. So yeah, Soldier is a pretty deadly accurate character. The only reason why he's not exactly a sniper is, of course, damage fall off, but honestly, he could literally just be a machine gun sniper if he wanted to, if he didn't have damage fall off. And even then, he's still pretty good at long range, even if he's not a literal sniper. Anyway, the changes they made to him is that, believe it or not, his damage used to be even higher. It used to be 20 damage per bullet, which meant that, as I say, you would deal 40 damage for a headshot, so you only needed 5 headshots to kill one of these things. Now you need 6, because it deals 18, which obviously gets doubled to 36. Still certainly doesn't mean his damage is bad. 6 bullets just to instantly delete someone like that, it doesn't take long. They're just gone like that. So yeah, it just means it's a little bit more reasonable. This also made sense because the DPS passive was very good on Soldier, since it's stacked with his sprint. And of course the reload's very nice because he doesn't get that many bullets in a clip to say how fast he shoots. Anyway, the other change that he got was a minor one. It was more of a quality of life change that probably won't change much, but it's certainly a nice change. You see, Tactical Visor will never headshot, at least it wouldn't in Overwatch 1. Because, of course, Tactical Visor is auto-aim for you, it wouldn't make sense for you to be able to get headshots off of it. So it always gave you body shots. The only problem with this is there were situations in which you could actually have aimed to land a headshot, but Tactical Visor would turn it into a body shot because you're using Tactical Visor. Now when you use Tactical Visor, if you line up a headshot, but you're using Tactical Visor, it will disable the auto-aim for that shot, so that you still get a headshot. So it will still auto-aim if I miss, but if I land headshots, it won't correct my shots. It will just let me fire exactly where I pointed if I'm already going to land a headshot. which is a nice change. Because there were actually situations, not often, but there were situations where at higher skill ceilings, some soldiers would on purpose not use visor because it would actually lower their DPS, that they, because they couldn't land headshots. If they were particularly accurate soldiers who were very confident in their skills, they would rather just try and land headshots than actually use tactical visor. Anyway. Oh, Sombra.
In my world,
Sombra is a long story. I actually really like the idea of Sombra, but I feel like she's been getting butchered for so long. I think that Sombra was honestly at her best when she was new. The main problem I have with Sombra, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to derail this almost instantly, because this is such an enormous problem that's been around for so long, and they won't get, it seems like they're not going to change it anytime soon, and they really need to. Okay, so they've made lots of changes to Sombra, practically completely reworked her. And here's the thing, I actually think all the reworks they made to her in Overwatch 2 are great. They all do nothing but make her a more fun character that creates more interesting scenarios rather than making it feel like some people just simply aren't allowed to play the video game. And as well as that, I think that she now actually feels like she contributes more to the fight, even when she's not necessarily getting the perfect opportunity to hack someone. I like all of this. But there are other things I do not like about Sombra a lot, and they've actually been around for a long time. And people haven't talked about them much, but I feel like the reason why people hate Sombra now isn't any new reason. It's nothing to do with any of the new stuff she got. The new stuff she got was nothing but good for the game. The problem is the new stuff she got now made her good. And that meant that people now can see how garbage the other shit she had was for the game, and how much it ruins this game. So, Translocator, that's my big bugbear. So, okay. Translocator, when Sombra was new, used to have a 15-second time limit. When you threw it down, you couldn't teleport back to it if you waited longer than 15 seconds. It would self-destruct. This was fine. It should have stayed that way. Because you shouldn't be able to just teleport from wherever you want to anywhere else you want and instantly negate all debuffs on you and just use it as a get out of jail free. Anytime you're in any fight that you're actually going to lose because you made a mistake and fucked up, you shouldn't just be able to decide, you know what, I don't feel like actually being punished for my mistakes, teleports away, it kind of sucks. So I liked it when, yes, you could teleport away, but to teleport away, first of all, your teleporter couldn't be the Translocator couldn't be that far away because it had to be within 15 seconds of you. Second of all, when I say within 15 seconds, that's including the time you would take to fight the person and kill them off if you want to actually get a pick off of it. So realistically, it would probably only be like 3 or 4 seconds away from where you placed it. So the enemies could actually realistically find where you teleported to and chase you down, even if you did get away. So it wasn't just a free get out of jail free. It wasn't just, I decide I'm not going to die from this. You could still potentially be caught. It would just give you a good head start. Now, though, since you just place a Translocator, leave it as long as you like, and at any time just decide, I'm going to teleport to it. It's literally possible. Like, okay, if we imagine there's an enemy team here, and this is, like, my spawn room. If I don't want the enemies to be able to kill me at all, even once this game of Sombra, all I do is this.
Just in case.
Now, as the enemies, they can't walk into my spawn room, and the Translocator's here. They can't see it behind the wall. So, what do they do now? Anytime I walk out, if they're about to kill me, I teleport back, and I throw down another one. Oh, you're about to kill me? I teleport back and I throw down another one. And it's like, how are you supposed to kill Sombra then? And I think the answer is just kind of you don't. You see, how you're supposed to kill her, I guess, is to find the Translocator and destroy it, since you can break it just by dealing even, I think it has 1 health, so I think you can deal any amount damage to it and it'll break. And I think that makes sense in theory, except for one problem. This is literally an unbreakable Translocator. And you can do this on most maps. You can just place it inside spawn if you want to. And then what do you do? In fairness, it does have its downsides. If you do leave it this far back, it takes longer to get back into the fight as Sombra, because you have to run all the way back. But realistically, I don't think this is enough of a punishment. I feel like she should not be able to just be inside the enemy spawn, being cocky as hell, trying to 1v5 the entire enemy team on her own, and then not get punished for it, because she can just zoom out. So what I would hope they would do, even though I don't think it's realistic, is I would hope they would put a range limit on Translocator. When I say that, I don't mean a short range. I do still want it to be able to teleport you pretty far away so you can get away. I would like for it to be, in general, let's imagine a map like Lijiang Night Market. One of the 3 maps in Lijiang Tower. If you imagine Lijiang Night Market, I think you should be able to place a Translocator either in your spawn, but then at that point, if you try and walk past the halfway point, like if you try to start to walk towards the enemy side of the map, then you're out of range, you can't teleport to it anymore until you come back to your side of the map. Or you could place it in the middle of the map, and then you could go all the way into the enemy spawn and, you know, harass the enemy's backline. But if you wanted to do that, you would have to leave your translocator in the middle of the map, where it's way more likely someone could come across it and break it. That I would like. There would actually be a risk to that. There would actually be skill to that. The way it is now, it's just, okay, let me put it in spawn, let me run up to someone. Oh, fuck, I made a terrible mistake. I shouldn't have even initiated this fight. I have no game sense. It's terrible out. Yeah, I don't care. You know, it's like... why? So yeah, I'm not a fan of Translocator now. I really, really hope that they don't, when they nerf Sombra, because they're probably going to, I hope to God they don't revert the new changes they made, which have done nothing but make her more fun to play. And I hope that they instead make it so that Translocator is different. On top of that, just on another note, invisibility used to not be permanent. It used to be a 6-second timer. I don't know why they made it permanent as well. I think it used to be even faster in invisibility, though, to compensate, which I like. So, again, I don't understand why we have another ability here, where instead of it being a timed kind of hit-and-run, kind of dash in there, go for some risky plays, and then hope you can get out without them chasing you down and figuring out what you went to. Instead, it's just kind of like this, okay, let me just set up my safety net. Okay, let me just walk up to the enemy team, no rush. Yeah, okay. Oh, I got a kill. Okay, let me get out. Okay, let me throw down another one. Let me just walk up to the enemy's backline again. No one's gonna challenge me because I'm invisible. Okay. You know, that could happen too. Fair enough. You could just get shot out of invisibility. That could happen too. But yeah, of course, that's relying kind of on random chance. Anyway, finally, I'll actually talk about the new changes about Som-BRUH. Because I said these new changes are nothing but good, and my god, they are. So, Som-BRUH was really annoying at Overwatch 1, and arguably still is, but I think the main reason she's really annoying at Overwatch 2 is just because she can teleport away and turn invisible whenever she wants, and there's no time limit or range limit on any of it. I think if you add that range limit or time limit or whatever, then she wouldn't be so frustrating. Anyway, in Overwatch 1, she was especially annoying because, well... Hack was a very strange ability. Of course, it disabled your abilities for 6 whole seconds when you hacked someone. And it also didn't feel very fair to a lot of characters in Overwatch 1. You see, if I hack someone like Reaper, he does not give a shit. Oh, boo-hoo. I can't use, like, Wraith Form or Shadow Step anymore. I guess I'll just shoot you twice at close range and instantly kill you from full health. Like, oh, wah, you know. And I can't go invisible because it's got so much pellet spread that even if I'm at a good distance, he fires a shot, one of those pellets is going to hit me. So yeah, I can't really fight a Reaper at close range as Sombra, and hacking him does nothing to it. But then there'd be characters like Doomfist. If I go up to a Doomfist, and I hack Doomfist, I am now bullying a disabled man. Because Doomfist can only deal damage with his primary fire at extremely close range, and he can't get to extremely close range without any of his abilities. And he also can't deal damage in any other way without his abilities, except for his primary fire. So basically you have a character who can do nothing but walk around, who doesn't have that much health, who can only deal damage to people who are standing right in front of him. For 6 whole seconds. Yeah, you can see why old hack was kind of garbage. Well, not garbage in that it was weak, but garbage in that it was bad for the game. There were just some characters where it's just like, oh, they picked Sombra, I'm not allowed to play anymore. Wrecking Ball especially, I know all too well the pain of having to deal with Sombra as Wrecking Ball. The amount of times that I'm about to get an enormous like minefield on the entire enemy team, I'm going to minefield pile driver them, and just as I'm lining up, as I'm flying into the air above them, just hovering my finger over the F key, ding 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 ding, hacked, and it interrupts the entire ultimate. And of course you can't even go to full form or hacked. It sucks. So what did they do to hacked in Overwatch 2? Well, they actually made a lot of changes which make it sound weirdly specific now, and I can understand if some people think this is an overcomplicated way to do it, but honestly, I really like the changes. I think they really fixed hack. I like how it is now. So essentially, it now does 3 things. 2 of those things last 8 seconds, and one of them only lasts 1.75 seconds. The thing that lasts 1.75 seconds is the ability disable. It still disables abilities, but now for literally less than 2 seconds. Now, that doesn't mean it's not useful. I mean, obviously there are some abilities where the time frame to use them is so important that even just 2 seconds of not being able to use that ability is actually pretty damn significant. So it's not like hack isn't useful, especially considering it's only got a 4-second cooldown. It's still very much worthwhile using to disable abilities. And especially because, I especially like this change because what was cool about hack is when you outsmarted someone, is when you caught someone positioning themselves in an area where it kind of hints they're about to use their ultimate, and you were invisible behind them, and you had all this planned ahead, and then you could tell they're about to go in. Say there's like a Reaper who TP'd up onto the roof of a building just above all the rest of your team, and you don't do anything at first. You just walk up behind him while invisible, and then you just see him about to jump off the building, and you know he's gonna Death Blossom, and you just look over the end of the building as soon as he's dropped off and just hack him and insta-cancel it. Stuff like that felt so satisfying to do, and it felt game-winning. I love doing it against Pharahs when they're using Rocket Barrage and stuff like that as well. That's another one that's really good to counter with hack. That's what made hack feel cool. Or even just killing a Lucio off the edge of the stage because they were wall riding and being cocky off the side, and then you hack them and they can't wall ride anymore and they fall to their death. That's a funny one as well. But a lot of these just don't require you to have 6 whole seconds and no abilities. A lot of these would still be effective even if they only lasted 1 second. And in fact, that's the part of it that's cool, that you had the timing and the planning ahead and the strategizing to land that perfect 1 second of not being able to do what you want, and then it just flips the game. It's not cool when you just continuously camp someone and the second they're able to use their abilities again, oh no, you're not allowed to play the game. No, there's no game for you. No. Oh, you're playing the game. No, not allowed to play the game. No. You're not allowed to press any of your buttons. Do not press any buttons. I'm the one who presses buttons. Oh, you want to use your abilities? No. I think you get the point. Considering that Sombra can remain invisible basically as long as she wants, a Sombra could just follow someone basically the entire game a lot of the time. And anytime they want to contribute anything to the fight, they could just be like, yeah, you can't play the game anymore. And again, I know for some characters it's not that bad, but for characters like Wrecking Ball and Doomfist, yeah, it really is that bad. It is just, I'm not allowed to play the video game until this Sombra gets off of me or someone deals with her. But even then, how do you deal with her? She just teleports away anytime you actually jump her. So anyway, so now that it's only like 1.75 seconds, don't get me wrong, it's still really annoying dealing with Sombra as Wrecking Ball, but like, it's doable. Like, I don't feel like I have to switch Wrecking Ball whenever there's a Sombra on the enemy team. I think that there is a small amount of space to just skill diff them now, when before it was literally just, well, I can't play the game anymore. Anyway, of course there's 2 other effects I mentioned. One of them is often forgotten, but when you hack someone, they are completely visible through walls, not only to you, but also to your entire team. It's pretty useful. And the final thing is probably the most significant change, and that is that hack provides one last benefit. For 8 seconds, just like the seeing through walls, it will provide a 40% damage boost, but only to Sombra. And only when shooting that target. So only when Sombra shoots Wrecking Ball, she will deal 40% extra damage. If teammates shoot a hack target, they don't deal 40% extra damage. If you shoot a different target, you don't deal extra damage. I just want to make that clear. But yeah. Now you might be like, is that really even that good then? Because, I mean, you know, if the teammates can't take advantage of the hack, then, I don't know, it's just for you, it's just on one target, you have to spend a whole, like, doing this. Like, is it worth it to hack someone whose abilities aren't that valuable, just so you can get the damage bonus and the seeing through walls? I think there are situations where the answer is no, but I think most of the time the answer is actually still yes. The reason for that is because 40% damage is probably more than you think. Again, try and put this in perspective with some analogies. Nano Boost is a 50% damage boost. So you can think of it almost like when you hack someone as Sombra, you're basically giving yourself a mini Nano Boost against them. Like, it's only 10% less of a damage boost than a Nano Boost. Now, even though this analogy does work, I do understand it's kind of a bit hyperbolic, because Nano Boost is a much more powerful ultimate. Like, it's not quite a Nano Boost. So I think a better analogy is to say, it's like having a constant Mercy pocket on you as Sombra everywhere you go. You see, even though Mercy's damage boost is less than the Hack's damage boost, Mercy only provides a 30% damage boost, whereas Sombra gets a 40% damage boost. Of course, you are losing some damage to getting the hack in the first place, and as well as that, Sombra's damage is generally a little bit lower than most DPS anyway. So I think that analogizing her damage on a hack target to like having a Mercy pocket is probably better than saying like a Nano Boost to yourself. But yeah, 40% is more than you think. And also, if you're wondering why the damage buff doesn't apply to your teammates, what should really put it in perspective is Discord Orb. if you weren't already aware, Zenyatta's Discord Orb is essentially probably the single most broken single ability in the game that isn't an ultimate. He just looks at someone, and they take extra damage from everyone in your team. It's that simple. And it's insanely powerful. It's the reason why Zenyatta is purposely designed to be the only support who doesn't have any tools to defend himself or get away when he gets dived. It's because if he didn't, then he would break the game wide open with Discord Orb. And in fact, he still did in Overwatch 1, even with the fact that he had no escape tools when he got dived. Because of course, other people would just give him the escape tools for him. Briggs would like camp their Zens, and any single time someone jumped the Zen, they would shield bash the target, stun them, and murder them. Of course, now that doesn't work anymore in Overwatch 2, which is why Zen's in a weird spot where he's kind of simultaneously really good and really bad. But anyway, back on topic. How much do you think that Zen's Discord Orb increases the damage by, of like, you know, the target? It is only 25%. So, to put in perspective, if Sombra's hack did apply the damage buff to all teammates, you would have basically a double Discord Orb on a DPS who can turn invisible and teleport. Yeah, pretty good that that didn't end up being the case. That would have been... Eesh. Anyway, they also tightened their spread a bit, which I like. I always like it when characters get their spread tightened. I completely forgot to mention that you actually can hack while invisible now as well. Now, when I say that, you do become visible while hacking, like so. But you don't have to cancel your invisibility to begin a hack anymore, which is actually huge, because you used to have to play a long cancelling invisibility animation during which you could basically not move. And as well as that, you obviously would have to wait for your invisibility to come back off cooldown, whereas now you don't. You can just... Well, it's a good thing this is a game with random AI and that I'm throwing here just to demonstrate and not anything else. And as well as that, EMP got a nice buff. It did get a nerf to compensate, but the nerf is very, very situational. Essentially, if you were going against a character who had a lot of shield health, the blue health that regenerates on its own, like that, which of course Zenyatta has a massive amount of, then when you use EMP, because this shield health is supposed to be generated electronically, and EMP obviously is going to destroy electronics, it would instantly destroy all shield health on all characters. So if I used EMP in Overwatch 1 against the Zenyatta, he would instantly be set to 50 health and lose the 150 shield health. Now this was kind of bull, because, you know, most characters in the game didn't have any shield health, so against most characters in the game it wouldn't do anything. But against characters like Zenyatta, it would instantly put them on a quarter health, or against characters like Zarya or Sigma, it would instantly halve their health. Which, yeah, that's not very fair, is it? So instead now, it doesn't destroy shield health anymore, but it does something else, which is honestly better than what it used to do. It will instantly make them lose 40% of their current remaining health the second EMP hits them, on top of hacking them. That's pretty good, honestly. Like, remember that hack is one of the fastest building ups in the game. See how fast I'm building up hack? I've already got half to my next one. I can get hack this fast, and then just go for another one. And it's kind of almost like a mini gravitic flux on a DPS character, considering gravitic flux is the other ult in the game, which actually deals different amounts of damage depending on like your percentage of your health instead of just a flat amount of damage. So yeah, I think EMP is an amazing initiation tool. That's kind of like almost like a tank ult on a DPS. It's an initiation tool you use to like be like, okay, this is the time for our entire team to go in. So yeah, you just run in with Invis as Sombra, EMP, and then, oh look, the entire enemy team is crippled and hacked and, like, close to death. Yes, we just run in on them now. And it's especially satisfying since you deal plus 40% damage to all of them as you're doing that. So yeah, every single change they made to Sombra is positive. Every single change they made to Sombra makes her factually just a more fun character to play, a less annoying character to deal with. But the reason why people hate Sombra right now is because these changes also made her actually good. And that means that all the problems she's always had, that have always been around, that have been ignored because she wasn't that common a pick, are now being forced to be, you know, confronted because now she's a very popular pick. She is one of the top 3 DPS in the game. I would say that, like, Soujorn, Genji, and Sombra are in a tier of their own, way above every other DPS in the game right now. And I think out of those 3, I would rank them Sojourn's best. Probably at the highest levels is then Genji, but I would say Sombra's, for the average player, is better than Genji, and then Genji. That's not to say the other DPS are bad, but these are just like, if you're try-harding and you're just trying to like really win those competitive games, those are the picks. Anyway, Symmetra. Symmetra also got some reworks that people didn't like, but I actually do like. I actually think that... I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna let out my elitism here. I feel like a lot of the people who are complaining about the Symmetra changes aren't Symmetra players, really. So, Symmetra has basically been retooled to be less brainless and genuinely rewards strategic placement more than before. So you see, before, of course, with Symmetra, your turrets were so powerful that if you were in a low-skill ceiling game where people were blind to turret, you could win a lot of games by just doing this.
Setting up the car wash. Setting up the car wash. Setting up the car wash. Setting up the car wash.
Why do you struggle? Why do you struggle? Why do you struggle?
And then play of the game would be this.
Effective triple kill.
I guarantee you. Those are the kind of Symmetra players I think that are going to be mad about these changes. But I think if you actually regularly play Symmetra, you're going to like these changes. So, turrets still deal the same amount of damage, however, the slow they apply has been reduced, so that people get more chance to walk out if they walk through a doorway and there's just 3 turrets there, and they instantly get massively slowed and take an enormous amount of damage, and the slow prevents them from walking back to the doorway to safety. The slow's been reduced now, although it still exists. As well as that, her primary fire has more ammo now, but no longer reloads ammo for dealing damage. So you will run out of ammo eventually, even if you non-stop keep the beam connected to something. As you can see, it still charges up its damage every time, and you can also see that the visuals have received a massive upgrade for Symmetra as well. Symmetra's gonna look so good at OW2. And of course the DPS passive greatly benefits Symmetra, now that she can outrun her opponents while getting these like stampeding kills, and reload faster as well. So even when you do have to reload, it's not as bad as you'd think, because, you know, the reload's faster, because you almost certainly got a kill before you had to reload. Even though the turrets don't slow as much, they also fly out faster, so the enemies have less time to react to them being placed if they're being placed near them, which is nice. But what I really like about the new Symmetra isn't any of this. It's the teleporter. Oh my god, the teleporter. I love what they did. So this is what I like about Symmetra. I love the teleporter, and I think it's almost depressing that when I see 99% of Symmetra players play this game, they do this. They start the game, place the teleporter at spawn, use it, that's it. They never move the teleporter, they just put it down at spawn, and it's probably a bad idea for me to have self-destroyed it instantly, but like, yeah, they would just leave it there. They would never destroy it. They would just leave it in that one spot and never move it and never use teleporter again for the rest of the game. And it's like, why? I mean, I get you can come back from spawn faster, but like, there's so many fucking uses for teleporter, and you're choosing to use the one use that literally everyone already knows, and you're not going to try to do any flanking with it, any rush kind of comps, no ult combos with it. You're just going to place it here and leave it like that. I always thought this is very disappointing to see. Now, Symmetra's just actually a flanker, because people are now being discouraged from just placing down teleporters and leaving them in spawn, because they will self-destruct after 10 seconds now. They do not just stay where you put them forever. This might sound bad, but it's good, because it allows them to make another buff to them in return. That buff being, do you notice that I already have another teleporter? Yeah, usually I'd have to wait 12 seconds. I had to wait 2. That's huge. The reason why is because the cooldown is 12 seconds still, but now it starts the second you place a teleporter, rather than once the teleporter is destroyed. Which means you spend 5/6 of your time playing Symmetra with a teleporter up. Which means that's why she's now a flanker. She can actually charge up to people and go for these plays where she tries to mow them over with her beam. Because the new DPS passive means she can outrun people sometimes. Her teleporter means that like that's a great way to actually get in the first place if it's like long sightlines you have to deal with. And on top of that, the only thing you would have to worry about is your escape route. And the old Symmetra wouldn't get an escape route. You know, the teleporter would just like get you in, and then the teleporter would probably be destroyed, and then you couldn't get out. So you'd have to wait 12 whole seconds without dying. But now you go in with a teleporter. If it's about to get destroyed, you go out, or if it's not about to get destroyed, you stay in. You keep pushing your advantage, and then the second you get a moment, it's like, all right, I got my kills. I'm getting out of here. So I've been playing Symmetra in competitive as my DPS, and my god, yeah, it's fun. I love the new Symmetra. The only other changes is a positive one. First, the secondary fire, besides just looking fucking sick now as these giant crystal balls, now does less damage but flies way faster. And I actually am decent at killing Pharahs and Echoes with this now. It's got some range on it. Like, don't get me wrong, it's no hit scan or anything, of course. Symmetra's still made to be played at, like, you know, close range. But I really like this new secondary fire as well. So yeah, I've got nothing but positive things to say about this new Symmetra. The only thing I did have to say that might have been a bit negative is I thought that I wasn't sure I would like the not reloading ammo anymore while holding a beam on someone. But the faster reload from the DPS passive helped compensate for that. And the more that I've played her, the more I've realized I don't think it actually matters that much, and I feel like they might have done it to tone her down a bit. Because if she could infinitely reload ammo and get the speed boost from the DPS passive and have these flanking teleporters constantly up, she might actually get to the point where she could just run up to any team and mow them down with one supercharged beam and just, you know, have games where Symmetra just walks at people and mows them all over. At least now, even if they're going to be brief, these moments where you have to quickly reload your gun give the enemy team some opportunity to flip things if they're getting rolled by a good Symmetra. So yeah, that's Symmetra. Really like the changes. Almost nothing but good to say. We're nearly done here. Torbjörn. Okay, I don't have much good to say about Torbjörn. But that's not because of anything in Overwatch 2, that's just because of changes they made to him a while ago. In Overwatch 2, all they did is they made it so he fires a little bit faster with both his primary fire and his secondary fire. Now, why am I complaining about this? Well, I'm not got any problem with him shooting faster. I don't think the changes they made to him in Overwatch 2 are bad. I think the changes they made to him in Overwatch 1 are bad. If you didn't realise, Torbjörn changed massively at one point early, well, I think halfway through about Overwatch 1's life, where basically they made it so his turret could no longer be upgraded. You just place it down, and hammering it would only heal it. It would not upgrade it. It would just start as a level, effectively a level 2 turret. Which means there's now really no skill to using turret. Not that there was much before, but there was like some strategy. Now it's kind of like you just place it, and there you go, there's your turret. And thingy, as well as that, they removed his armor packs, which I was especially mad about, because I loved his armor packs. I think they were just scared of like the balance implications of being able to give things like people like Tracer extra armor health on top of their already very small health pool with the ability to rewind time and teleport and deal enormous damage. Which is fair enough, I guess, but I feel like at the point where you're going to take Torbjörn, this engineer character, where the only real kind of like draw and strategy to him is the placement of your turrets and like, you know, the upgrading of your turrets and all that kind of stuff. I think you're going to strip him down to the point where his turret has no properties except you just place it and you can heal it with your hammer. And you take away his armor pack so that the only thing he can do without his turret is just give himself extra health and speed. Then you've made a character that's extremely boring. Now, in fairness, there is one thing I will say I like about the new Torbjörn, which is, if I get this, Reinhardt. He's got a lot of armor, doesn't he? Well, what if I told you there's actually one thing in this game, it's the only thing in the game that works like this, that actually does more damage to armor than it does to normal health? That would of course be Molten Core. You can see melts armor extremely quickly. It deals double damage to armor.
Foolishness would be the end of you.
So yeah. Anyway, that leaves only one, because we already covered Widowmaker, and that's Tracer.
Cheers, love.
You'd think I might not have much to say about Tracer, because, well, she only received one change, and it was a very simple nerf. Guns used to deal 6 damage per bullet, and now they deal 5. And of course she has the DPS to pass it down. Well, I actually have a decent amount to say about Tracer. I really like what they did with Tracer, even though it's very simple. You see, I had a bit of an unpopular opinion in Overwatch 1. I had the unpopular opinion that people don't really realize this, but Tracer's actually a noob stomper character, kind of like Junkrat or Reaper or Bastion, where you play them in low ranks and you just delete everyone. And that sounds weird, because you'd think, you know, usually Tracer's considered a high skill ceiling hero, and oh, you have to be very good at the game for it to be like, oh yeah, all the pros player and all that. And I'm not gonna lie, at least at the ranks I was at, I could, like, as a person who doesn't really play DPS and isn't the best Tracer, I could just kind of run at people and, like, blink around. And, like, I didn't really have to think that much about where I was going, I just had to be hard to hit and fire at them like this. And I would just run through peaks. Like I would just mow them over like this. And it got to the point where before Overwatch 2 came out, I decided to check my win rates with every hero in the game. And although this isn't the case anymore, in Overwatch 1, my highest win rate hero of all time was Tracer, who I only had 4 hours of playtime on my career profile, with a 72% win rate. That's pretty high. That's kind of disgusting that I can win nearly 3/4 of my games on Tracer as someone who isn't an experienced or like skillful Tracer. So yeah, now I understand at the higher levels people are probably better at countering Tracer just because they've got better aim and they know about where to shoot to catch Tracer's blinking away probably better, and they can counter rewind better, I guess. But like, you could see why I was kind of frustrated with the state of Tracer. I was already thinking it's so insanely hard to actually catch her. But then on top of that, when I actually saw how much damage she did, I mean, I thought it was insane. Like, in Overwatch 1, you could one-clip people as Tracer, and I didn't realize that. Like, I mean, I think most people in the community knew it, like, pretty well, but, like, I genuinely didn't realize. And once I realized, I was like, what the fuck? You can just... And they're dead. Like, that quick. You might notice I didn't do that on a bot, though. That's because you can still one-clip people in Overwatch 2, but the 1 damage per bullet nerf they provided to her guns is actually really nicely tuned. Because if I do this, you might be like, oh, well, what are you trying to demonstrate there? That was exactly 200 damage on the dot, like exactly. Point being that now, if you miss 1 bullet in the clip, you can't one-clip anymore. And I actually love this. Because now, as Tracer, you actually have to land your shots while being... You see, I missed 1 bullet, and it barely wasn't enough. Now you actually have to land your shots to be able to get these kills. Now, don't get me wrong, you still have to quote-unquote land your shots in Overwatch 1, but in Overwatch 1, with no headshots, 1 clip would deal 240. So, you could miss, like, 8 whole shots or so without... Oh, wait. Maybe more like 7, because it's 6 damage per pellet, not 5. But yeah, 8 or 7 like shots or so out of the 40. You could miss like a good proportion of them and still one-clip someone, which I didn't think was very fair. I thought that was kind of stupid that you could get away with that. But now in Overwatch 2, it feels like Tracer is more... Again, I've mentioned this for a lot of characters, but it feels like the changes they made to Tracer make her better for Tracer players, but worse for average players, which I think is a good thing overall. Because if you're a Tracer player, you probably don't miss that many shots, and you probably do still one-clip people very often. And if you do, you get a lot off the DPS passive. You get this enormous speed, because Tracer could already run faster than most characters, and now she gets a speed boost on top of that from the passive. You get the faster reload and all that. You can like go on an adrenaline rush just chaining kills off of Tracer. But if you're not a good Tracer, you're not going to get the benefit of passive because you're going to struggle to get a kill in the first place. Because you're going to be missing shots when you try to one-clip people, and they're going to be left like that, and you're going to be trying to finish them off. And you're going to be wasting blinks and rewinds, like, you know, trying to stay alive and keep that fight going to get that 1 kill. Now, in fairness, you can still miss a couple bullets and still one-clip them by doing this. Okay, I missed too many bullets. So it's hard to, on purpose, miss just a couple bullets. You can do that. But in fairness, that at least means you're using a blink. So I think that also is kind of balanced out with the fact that, you know, you have to use more ability to do that, which means you have less of an ability to get away. But yeah, the new Tracer. I really feel like she's just really fun now, and like she's less annoying to deal with now, because even though she can still one-clip people, I now know when I've been one-clipped, it is because I was being too predictable and the Tracer knew where I was moving. And, you know, it wasn't just because they sprayed bullets in my direction and like they were just accurate enough, I guess. You know, and as well as that, I feel like she's almost easier to catch, or at least counter in some ways. I don't know. I know that you still die really fast, but like the extra very small window of time you get compared to normal, like in Overwatch 1, like the reaction time if you're the person getting one clip. I feel like the slight extra time before you die is just perfect, especially if you're a support, for you to like do something like nade yourself as your Ana to save yourself, or use regen burst to your Baptiste. And I actually quite like that. So yeah, that's Tracer. That's all of them now. So yeah, overall, even though I don't play DPS so much, I do think that most of these changes have been pretty positive. And as I say, I think a lot of these characters have become better for the people who actually play those characters, even if they might become worse for the characters, the people who just kind of play them every now and then, but don't really play those characters as their main. But like as I say, I think that's the case for Tracer. I think that's the case for Widow. I think that's the case for Soldier. Oh, I didn't even mention Soldier's quite unpopular right now, despite his insane damage, because of the fact that Soujorn exists and they're both so similar. But I even think that Soldier still has some utility in that Tactical Visor combos amazingly with both Nano Boost and the new ultimate from Kiriko, Kitsune Rush. And as well as that, I think that Soldier, with the fact that he's always a hit scan, whereas Sojourn's only a hit scan when she has Railgun Charge, is better against long-range enemies or flying enemies. So I think he has his niche. I think that, as I say, I think that Genji, if you're good with Genji, is even better than ever before. I think that Cass is even still good if you are a good Cass player. So yeah, almost all of these characters I feel like they've been specialised in a really nice way, and of course Symmetra is probably the best example of that in my opinion. As I say, I think the ones that are kind of concerning right now are mostly Reaper. Sombra because of Translocator more than anything else. And I think that Soujorn is fun and it's kind of good for the game that she's good, similar to Genji. But I do agree she does need toning down. How they go about that, I don't know. I've heard people saying she shouldn't be able to headshot with Railgun. I couldn't disagree more. I'm not gonna lie, I feel like you need it to be able to one-shot people from far away. Like, you can make it so it's harder to one-shot, or that she can only one-shot true squishies like 200 health and maybe not 250 or 225. But I don't think you could ever make her not one-shot. Or at least, I don't know, the furthest I could see myself going with nerfing Sojourn, if I had the choice, was making it so she only got a 50% damage boost from a Railgun headshot, meaning she'd deal 195 damage with a Railgun headshot, and then she'd have to land one bullet to finish them off. That is the furthest I could see myself going if I had the choice to nerf Sojourn. I feel like it wouldn't be good to take away her one-shot capabilities, because then she becomes a very generic DPS with like none of these crazy pop-off moments, and her skill ceiling gets brought down significantly. And again, she kind of solved this problem of when you have this fortress where you need to solo carry to flip a game. You can do it now, but then if you would remove the ability to do it if you decided to remove the headshotting. I don't know. Maybe just make, I don't know, Railgun deal 100 damage on the dot, and then headshot is 200 even. That would be fine as well. I don't know. Either way, I'm not the balance team necessarily, but next video we'll be covering supports. I'm also going to re-record supports, just because at this point I may as well. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.